Strictly Rangers. I am Jacob Brown, joined here with my dad. We're going to go over the last week of New York Rangers hockey, and this is the first one we're actually going to put visually on YouTube, so you can keep listening on all your podcast platforms if that's what you prefer. But you can also go to YouTube, and actually, let me look it up, what exactly you have to look up. I think you just look up Strictly Sports Productions on YouTube. It's the first channel that comes up if you filter it for channels. And then that'll be it. We're going to do that for all of our podcasts now, or most of them at least. Film them, put them on YouTube, so you guys have that option as well. And also, I want to thank everyone who's been listening to this pod. I was looking at the podcast numbers the other day, and I advertise the Apple Podcast, iHeart, and Spotify, and then I see most of the people who have been listening are from other platforms. So I want to thank everyone who's come by and listened to us. Hopefully, we're doing a good job, and we're going to get going here and talk about the last week of Ranger hockey. It's been a little underwhelming too, because I think the last one we did was before the Devil game, and we were going into that and we were saying this isn't just a cakewalk. The Devils have been playing really well. Blackwood have been playing well. They played the Bruins really well, and we said it's not going to be a cakewalk, and it wasn't, because the Rangers lost. Dad, I was at work for that game. What did you think was the main problem for that game for the Rangers?
Well, bad start. No doubt. Obviously, you give up a goal 30 seconds in, and you're back on your heels. That never helps. But it's something weird happening with the Rangers this year, and maybe I'm just maybe it's just my interpretation or an impression that I've developed. But it seems the Rangers have a really tough time getting quality shots to the net. They a lot of their shots are getting blocked. They're either directly, or if somebody's getting a stick on stick before the shot. It just seems weird that they're not creating just flush shots on net. I mean, they had 50 shots against the Devils, but it didn't seem that way. It didn't seem like they were peppering this guy with high quality opportunities. And I think that's a function of, at times, this team not moving their feet, not getting to open spots, not driving to the net. There's a lot of periphery play. So yes, 50 shots against the Devils, but again, this wasn't like some situation where, at least in my eyes, where a goalie was the most dominant player on the ice. We've seen games like that. You can say, "Oh, a goalie stole it," but that was one issue. The other issue was that it seemed every time the Devils came down the ice, it was going to be a goal. I mean, I don't know if that's Gorgiev. I mean, they pulled Gorgiev for the third period. I think that was less a reflection on him as it was just to spark the team. But it was just weird. It was just like every time the puck went near the net, score, tip-ins. Rangers don't get tip-ins. They don't get second chances. And that's always been my concern with this team, ultimately. It's not that they don't have a lot of guys that can punch you in the mouth. It's that they don't have a lot of guys that are goal mouth hungry, that play physical in the dirty areas, and it's troublesome, because it's an issue that will haunt them, especially when games, if they make the playoffs, when the games get really serious.
Well, I think it's a problem. I mean, they've been a little sloppy the whole year. They kind of don't. They struggle completing passes. They struggle keeping the puck in the offensive zone. They're just not. I don't know if it's an effort level, because I don't think it is an effort level. But we've talked about it a little bit with David Quinn. Is it a David Quinn issue at all?
It's a little too early to tell. I mean, this is a guy who had them on a huge run towards the end of last year. Maybe he's just trying to figure some out. He makes some questionable roster decisions night in, night out. I mean, I think the Jack Johnson thing is just I can't get my head around it. The guy, I don't see what he brings to the table that Brendan Smith doesn't, other than the fact that maybe they didn't want $1 million on the bench. Last night.
Yeah, but I mean, to counter that, Brendan Smith has more of a cap hit, and they're sitting him on the bench.
Right. So is this like some sort of promise that he made to that defensive coach that they brought over from Pittsburgh? Like,
yeah,
if you come over, we'll play Jack Johnson regardless of how much he sucks. I mean, I don't know. Brendan Smith's a veteran. He's got fresher legs. We've talked about it before. I think he's a more dynamic piece. Even last year, when he was struggling to be a regular staple in the lineup, They still trusted him on penalty kills. He's a great guy's always got a smile. He's a great clubhouse presence.
He's
I don't
physical
get
too.
it. And then last night, there was a comment in the paper before yesterday's game by Quinn. He was talking about Gauthier, and he said he needs a little bit more time to adapt the NHL game. And then lo and behold, what do we see? Kevin Rooney I don't know if it's Kevin, whatever the hell his name.
Yeah,
is.
I think
Rooney
it's Kevin.
Is in the lineup. Yeah. And I'm thinking, Gauthier, if you need somebody on a developing team that needs to learn how to adapt to the NHL game, put him in NHL games. Like Rooney is not the future. We don't know if Gauthier is, but the guy's run. He's got speed, size, and he's there's a couple of chances he's run shots off the post. He's maybe he's not as physical as we need him to be. Maybe he's a little bit too timid right now. But I didn't understand that decision out of the gate. And then what happens? Rangers up 3-1. Kevin Rooney, the Rangers just cleared the puck. I think it was either during or right after a penalty kill, or maybe just a regular shift. I don't know. The puck's out of danger, out of their zone. What does this fucking moron do? He comes behind Malkin and slew foots him, knocks him down, trips him.
Yeah.
Rangers get a penalty. That's when that made it 3-2. I mean, he's supposed to be a mature presence. I mean, that was like third grade move. I mean, the back ref is looking for that shit. I mean, it was as obvious as it could possibly be that he did that intentionally, and on Malkin no less. So Malkin gets his special treatment. So let me go trip that guy and kill all momentum. And game changed right with that power play.
And you have to wonder this too. I mean, Lafreniere, he is the number one pick and everything. But if we're following the same standards here of, you don't know how to adapt to the NHL game, why is Gauthier sitting and Lafreniere, he hasn't scored yet. He hasn't really pitched in offensively yet. Why is he promoted to the top line and Gauthier sitting? Now, I'm completely fine with Lafreniere playing on the top line. I think that's a good way to get him going. But you can't say one thing and say, Gauthier hasn't adapted yet, and then put Loff on the top line. He hasn't been producing yet. So there's a little inconsistency there. Same thing with Keandre Miller. He hasn't sat Keandre Miller. Now, Miller's had some positive games, but he hasn't sat him. So why is Gauthier being sat? What's the difference between him and Keandre and Lafreniere? Now, I like seeing in the Penguin game last night, Quinn ended up putting Hedel on the line with Panarin and Buchnevich, which I really like seeing. So at least he's finally seeing, okay, well, Strom's not playing that well. Maybe we could switch the lines up. So it's just weird. Like, what are the rules that David Quinn follows? Is it, okay, if you're a young player, you have to play a completely perfect game to be moved up in the lineup? Because that seems like what's the case with Hedel. But then it's like, wait a second, you're sitting Gauthier and putting Lafreniere on the top line and then demoting Kakko when you could argue Kakko's been playing a better game than he has in his entire career. So it's really interesting to me what Quinn is doing in terms of who's sitting, who's being promoted, who's playing.
Yeah, and Lafreniere started off well those first couple of games.
Yeah, like I'm not saying he's not playing well. I'm just saying why sit Gauthier?
Well, I'll say that. A couple of things. Number one, Lafreniere started off well. There was a little bit of a difference. The eye test told you there was a little bit of a difference. He looked like he, if not belonged, but would belong very shortly. He's tailed off a little bit, which is understandable. You go ups and downs. He's 19 years old. This is a schedule that these, they have to grow accustomed to. 30 seconds per shift in the NHL is a lot different than 45 seconds or a minute in juniors. It's just a different demand physically. So he's tailed off a little bit. And I understand that Gauthier is more susceptible to being sat than Lafreniere and Kakko because there's a different pedigree.
Right.
I just don't understand why Gauthier is sat in favor of Rooney. This is not like we desperately need to get fucking Kevin Rooney into the lineup. Like, who cares? I mean, who cares what that guy can contribute? Find out what Gauthier can contribute. We've talked about how Gauthier is in fantastic shape. Coach him through this shit, right?
Right.
Say, this is what I need to see. And then we're talking about he had what, 3 games under his belt or 4 games under his belt? Or what are they?
Yeah, he played in the playoffs, which were, I mean, that was a wash for the whole team. And then this season, I mean, who cares?
Yeah, so let him play through this. Let him figure it out. I mean, I just don't. I don't know. He's got the tools. Let him figure it out.
Yeah,
Now,
and
I will say this: I was completely wrong in my analysis of Di Giuseppe. That guy has shown up. That guy has totally shown up.
wow.
And I, I wasn't a big fan of that because again, he seemed like a placeholder, maybe taking ice away from other kids. But that guy, he was directly responsible for the Heedle goal. He took the
Yes,
body
he
in the
was.
corner,
Yep.
right? And that's why Heedle had an hour and a half to make like 7 moves. And he also he's the guy who shot the puck on purpose into the pads of the goalie that Kako buried the rebound on. That was not a shot that was an attempt to score. That was, let me see if this will work. So, and it did. So he's got his hands on both those goals. Over and above that, though, he brings energy, he brings pace, he brings passion. You see that from a guy like that, and your Kako, Lafreniere, Heedle, Gauthier, Howden, that whole like that's a template, right? Do that shit because if he doesn't have a pedigree. All those guys are #1 picks, and if they see a guy like Di Giuseppe putting that kind of energy level into every shift, that stuff wears off on you. Wears on you, right? It's a good thing to see. So that positive stuff out of him, and it's not just in a lunch pail role. He's on the third line and contributing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And forgot to mention who actually scored in that Devils game. So Kreider potted in his first, Zibanejad got his first goal, and so did Heedle. So Heedle scored 2 games in a row. But here's the part we have to worry about with Heedle. We all know he has his hot streaks. I mean, last year he had all those goals. We're like, okay, he's finally here, and then nothing for the final large portion of the season. So I want to keep seeing this from Heedle. But what would you think? I mean, the Rangers could end up trading Ryan Strome if Heedle actually continues on this pace.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Strome's a goner anyway. I think
Yeah,
the
because you
Rangers,
wanted him gone the whole time. Yeah.
yeah. So maybe I'll edit that and not say I think. I want Strome to be out of here.
Yeah.
I think he's a he hasn't shown up this year. I haven't seen him do shit. He last night when he could have started the game off with a goal on a breakaway from like center ice. Like literally, it was he had about a week and a half, and he skated in and like handed the puck to the fucking goalie. So he hasn't shown me anything. But as far as Heedle goes, to call Heedle streaky is almost a compliment because he went off 7 goals in like 11 games last year, and then he had 7 goals in the next like 400 games. I mean, like that's not even a streak. That's just like, okay, fantastic, and then off a cliff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like if he
Yep.
went 7 goals in 11 games, and then like 3 goals in 10, and then 5 goals in 12, or putting up points. But again, this gets back to what you and I have talked about a lot of times. His mindset as a center is he plays like a wing. He doesn't play like a center. He doesn't dish. He's looking to create his own opportunities, and that's fine. If that's your mindset. I just don't think that he's a playmaker at the center position, and that troubles me. So I don't know if they're ready right now to say, Strome goes away and Heedle takes that slot because they don't have a #3 center.
No, they don't.
So Strome's not going anywhere unless he goes away in trade, or they do what I talked about, which I don't see them doing practically, which is move Lafreniere to the middle. I don't see them. They've already experimented with him, putting him on 5 different lines and left and right here and I just don't see them doing it this year.
Yeah, me neither. And we didn't even bring that up yet. What do you think? I mean, we talked about Chris Kreider being transitioned to the right wing, and both of us a few pods ago, we didn't even see why that would be a possibility, considering Kreider's abilities. He's not the best puck handler. He doesn't have the best hands. He doesn't have the best one-timer shot. It's kind of weird seeing him switch like this just so you can get Lafreniere on the left wing. I feel like Lafreniere would be a way better right wing than Kreider would be a right wing. So what is this about? I don't see this at all.
Yeah, we brought it up because Larry Brooks suggested that Kreider can move over to the right, and it's egg on my face now because I thought that was one of the most ridiculous, theories that ever existed. I still think it is. I still think it makes no sense. Kreider has uh, he has his hands that have been a problem forever, and he's not a guy who can stick handle through traffic or cut to the middle and create space. He's just not that dude. So it's even more troubling that DQ thought that would be a solution. I understand maybe
Yeah.
trying to make Lafreniere more comfortable. If that's the case, I don't know. Put Buchnevich back on the first line and put Lafreniere back on the third line. I don't think that's going to happen now because I think DQ is probably going to start falling in love with that Di Giuseppe on the left of Hedel and with Kako on the right. That has been a very effective line. So I don't think that
Well,
thing's going to break them up.
I mean, we talked about though Gauthier getting his time. That means he might be stuck on the fourth line, which,
No doubt.
if you're looking for his production, he might not get the opportunity as much.
No, he won't. But then he's got to he's still got to suck it up, and he's him, Howden, and Lemieux. If that's the fourth
That could be
line,
great. Yeah.
it could be a great line. But they got to earn it. They got to earn fourth line minutes. Fourth liners are never going to get 15 minutes a game. That's just not going to happen. But a really effective fourth line can get 10 to 12 minutes per game, and those are the guys typically that are also killing penalties over time. Historically, that's the way it typically works. Your fourth liners are your guys that are also supplement there. But I don't know. It's just I know. I look. It's early. Quinn is obviously experimenting. He's trying to figure some stuff out. But it's a little weird how this team goes up and down and up and down. And yes, it's a small sample size, but I saw last night's debacle coming with against Pittsburgh. They got up 3-1, and that's when I started worrying. I started worrying exactly when I went up 3-1 with a young team that doesn't know how to hold on to a lead.
And when I texted you.
Yeah, of course. Well, I didn't want to publicly shame you, but you deserve it. With that ridiculous tweet you sent, text you
Not
sent.
tweet, text.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Thank God it wasn't a tweet because then more people would be exposed to it. But yeah, I was already worried, and then you text, it's great beating Pittsburgh, and I'm like, well, this game is, there's not a chance in hell they're going to win this thing. But yeah, I just, again, and you've made a habit of dismissing my perspective on the older teams and the experience and the seasoned DNA. And when you get up 3-1 on a team that has Malkin and Letang and Crosby, guys that have been there and done that, they don't give a shit about being down 2 goals. They know that it's a shift to shift thing. Let's go out there and beat and like crush some skulls on this particular shift. Let's ramp up the urgency. They've done that in the past. They know how to put the gas pedal down. And so when you're a young team, this is what we can expect from this Rangers team, I think, pretty consistently, because again, most of them are too young to drink or even fucking drive a car for that matter. So it's I don't know. We'll see. But look, let's not complain, right? This might be the beginnings of a beautiful era for the Rangers. It's just frustrating watching some of the decisions and some of the up and down stuff. But it's better than watching, I don't know, Minnesota right now. I'd slit my wrists if I was a Wild fan.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it is 4 games. There's time to do this. We get the Penguins again on Sunday at 7:00, and just to go over the scorecard in the 4-3 shootout loss, Hedel did score that second goal. Fox scored his first. Kako scored his second on a one-timer. That was a nice goal, and those were the Ranger goals. And then Igor played relatively well. He had 25 saves, 28 shots. But those goals for the Penguins that's another thing we have to bring up. I mean, they were kind of fluky goals from Pittsburgh.
No doubt. I mean, a goalie, the first one's a tip in from 1.5 feet in front of him. You can't react for that. He was positioned well. It would have hit him in the logo. He would have been fine. The second goal, Lindgren scored for Pittsburgh. So At that point, I'd rather you close your hand on the goddamn puck and give up a penalty shot rather than shovel it into the goddamn net. So that was frustrating to see, and you can see Shesterkin's reaction. The camera followed him because he got up and skated over to the corner. Like it was a total like what the fuck just happened moment for him.
Yep.
He's like, how the hell does that, because it was just, if you're gonna push the puck, push it forward. You know what I mean? But I guess Lindgren's perspective is I can push it underneath the goalie. But if your goalie's not ready for that,
Right. It's the heat of the moment. It's not like he's thinking, oh, this is what Lindgren's going to do right now.
no, because nobody ever does that. I mean, yes, they sometimes kind of nudge it underneath the goalie, but like Lindgren, like looked like he was going for the corner. I mean, like you don't, if anything, you nudge it forward so the goalie just can put the trapper over it. He literally took like an angled shot with it, which was, listen, heat of the moment. Obviously, there was no bad intent there. So first two goals, you can't blame the goalie for that at all.
Yeah, no, and again, we get them again on Sunday at 7:00, so I'm looking forward to that. Another thing we got to bring up: the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade just went down this morning to the Winnipeg Jets. This doesn't necessarily affect the Rangers this year because the Jackets aren't in our division. But I mean, this was a guy the Rangers were going after. We had been pretty vocal about, some weird comments from Dubois at 22 years old, has never won anything. He's never had more than 60 points, and he's out there like, hey, I need a bigger stage. It's like, okay, dude, like, what have you done exactly to get to that big stage? But he does get traded for two guys in Winnipeg that also wanted out. So I saw a bunch of NHL insiders this morning saying there might have been better deals out there because there were 20 plus teams interested in Dubois. But this was more about Winnipeg and Columbus being like, hey, your two guys don't want to be here and my guy doesn't want to be here. How about let's just swap them? And that's what happened. So Patrick Laine and Jack Roslovic are going to Columbus. And we were talking about it. Winnipeg's wing depth is a little weak now. Although if they get Dubois signed to a contract, they'll have a center for the next decade, and that's probably more worth it to them. And as for Columbus, I'm assuming based on the fact that they weren't able to sign Panarin, Laine is already getting paid $7.5 million. And he had 28 goals, 35 assists last year. So he's going to get a pay raise. I think Columbus is probably going to try and flip him. So that'll be interesting. I think Columbus, whatever they get in that package, that's when we can really evaluate what Columbus is going to be like in the future in terms of how they play against us. But what do you think about this trade and how it went down?
Well, you described it very well. It was just a result of circumstance of two teams that probably had some guys that had some baggage. One interesting element to this is, will Dubois have to wait 2 weeks in quarantine now that he's going up to Canada? Because I know that that's typically their expectation. So if that's the case, which I would imagine that it is, unless they've got a different protocol for players that that can be tested or whatever, or maybe he gets the vaccine or what have you.
Who knows? Yeah,
who knows? But it's going to be interesting. Winnipeg gets a young guy, and I don't have an in-depth knowledge of who's on the come in Winnipeg from a winger perspective.
I mean, they got Kyle Connor's young. He's an absolute stud, and they got Scheifele and Wheeler. They're a little bit older. Ehlers a little bit older. So Dubois and Connor are the future for them.
Yeah, and they might have some young guys that have been drafted recently that they're high on, so they might be building towards that.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't have that kind of in-depth knowledge of their entire organization. One thing I don't think will play. And I think you're right for about the money with Laine, but I also don't see Laine fitting in the Tortorella mode. I just he's a freewheeler. He's an offensive kind of guy.
Tortorella doesn't like that. He doesn't like
offense. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, Panarin had to get out of there because nobody was going to give him the money. That was obvious. I don't think that they have. I don't think that if they're not going to give $10 or $11 million to Panarin, and maybe that's not the slot that Laine's at right now. Maybe
probably not now because he's still 22.
Right. So maybe he's,
Yeah.
you mentioned that he's an RFA in a year or so. It tells you how long he's been around. Um, but the point is that maybe he's a 9 million guy, but if he's a $9 million a year guy, does Winnipeg, I mean, as an RFA, Columbus doesn't control that, right? Columbus doesn't have the ability to say you're negotiating totally only with us. So that'll push the price tag up for Liney and make him out of reach for Columbus. So I think you're absolutely right. I think they'll probably turn this around and maybe try to get draft picks and build for the future.
Yeah, and I hope that happens because Columbus is always a thorn in the side, and I don't know if they can win with the group that they have minus Line A in the near future. I mean, Bjorkstrand's nice and Cam Atkinson's nice, and they to me it's just not enough to win in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Maybe for the next 2, but we'll see for Columbus. So also next week, if we don't do a pod before this, the Rangers get the Sabres twice next week, both on the road on Tuesday and Thursday, and then they get the Penguins again at MSG next Saturday, and then the Penguins again that following Monday. So they get the Penguins a lot. So that's 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 of the 8 times that we'll have to face the Penguins within a 2-week span, and then we don't face the Penguins again until it looks like March. Yeah, we don't face the Penguins again until March. So it'll be interesting when we're in March saying how much has the Ranger team improved from the first 4 games to the second 4. That'll be fun. But I think, Buffalo's been playing pretty well. They got into a shootout with Washington last night. But then the other side of the coin is 4 of Washington's players are out with COVID protocol. Ovechkin, one of them, Kuznetsov. So their best players, they're all out with COVID right now. So who knows how you can judge Buffalo. But I kind of like going into this week with Buffalo twice.
Well, it's certainly better than going up against one of the I don't know. Do they even play Boston?
Yeah, no, we haven't. We're going to 8 times. We don't play Boston until February 10th.
So it's certainly better than going up against Boston or Philly right now.
Yeah.
Even though we have our thoughts on Philly about whether or not they're real, but so yes, I feel better than and candidly, I feel better about them going against Buffalo, against the Islanders, the Pittsburgh, the Capitals. Buffalo is clearly not the cream of this crop. That said, again, the Rangers it's basically preschool. It's like and so you don't know what you're going to get night in, night out. Eichel right now is a fully mature superstar. Taylor Hall's a former MVP. They've got that Dahlin guy on defense. They're playing pretty well. So, it comes down to commitment. It comes down to doing the right things and the same things, shift in, shift out. I keep going back to this guy, Di Giuseppe, but if every forward played, every guy that was not, that aspires to be something in the NHL. Now, Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, you already know who they are. But the younger guys, they should look at Di Giuseppe and say, that's how you play the game. That level of pace and energy. Because there's a lot of the younger, even Lafreniere is getting into this sort of figure 8 type of thing where, he's not hard on the puck. He's not taking the body. And maybe he's a little bit dumbfounded. Maybe like seeing Crosby last night was like, too overwhelming for him because obviously the whole history there, but again, 4 games into his career, not exactly the time to suggest Lafreniere is a cause for concern. But if I'm DQ, I'm going here. Watch this tape, right? Watch Di Giuseppe's shifts, night in, night out. Do that. Move your feet. Be sincere. Authentic effort. That trumps everything. And then the talent gets a chance to shine.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we were just talking about the Sabres being glad. I was saying on our East preview that they are better than people think. This is not, I mean, we said it with the Devils, same thing. This is not a cakewalk. I mean, you have Taylor Hall and Eichel, everyone knows that, but Olofsson had 20 goals in 54 games last year. Sam Reinhart had 22 goals, 28 assists last year. They have 6 foot. What was that?
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, they have 6'6" Tage Thompson. They got Jeff Skinner and Eric Stahl, Dylan Cousins, 19-year-old prospect, and then on defense, you already mentioned Dahlin, but they also have Ristolainen. They have Montior, who's pretty good, 26 years old. So this is not a bad team. They do have guys that could put the puck in the back of the net.
No doubt, no doubt. How did was it Rutsalainen? What's that?
Yeah, Rasmus Ristolainen.
Ristolainen, yeah,
Yeah.
him and Dahlin are pretty formidable pair of defensemen there. I don't know if they play together necessarily,
And
but
Montour's good too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those are two big. They're both big. They're both mobile. One's a righty, one's a lefty. Again, I don't know if they're on the same pair. I don't know how that plays out, but those guys. That guy Ristolainen has always impressed me. He's a good puck mover. He's physical. He's got a cannon of a shot. I don't know if Dahlin has necessarily lived up to his number one overall potential yet, but he's obviously not a bust by any set. And you rattled off a bunch of names there of guys that are mature in this league for a while. Dylan Cousins has a little bit of a cover, with having Jack Eichel on his team, and Taylor Hall, and these other guys. He's not expected to carry the franchise, even though he's a pretty high pick. Look, it's gonna be a bloodbath. This division is going to be a bloodbath. There are no nights off. There's never a night off in the NHL, no matter who you're playing. And the Rangers have to show up for 60 minutes. They got to play a 60-minute game, and that's a struggle sometimes for kids.
Yeah, and I mean, this is probably the game plan every time you go into a game, but I think especially with this, get as many shots on goal as you can, because the goaltending is the weakness for Buffalo. When you got Olmark and who's their other guy? Yeah, Hutton. These guys are not that great. Hutton has played relatively well this year, but still get as many shots on net as you can, because goaltending's weak. Squeak a few in there. That would be my strategy for that game too.
Yeah, but it's more than just getting shots on goal.
I mean, you got to be physical. You got to be on the forecheck.
You got to have traffic in front. You've got to be willing to go to the dirty areas and get the rebound goals and the slot goals and things like that. The Rangers are taking a lot of shots from 30, 40 feet out that are. This is not 1978 where the shin guards were paper thin, where the skates were made of thin leather, and if you wound up for a shot, people fucking jumped into the crowd to get the hell out of your way.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys lay out. They block shit because they're protected. And
it's the mantra. Remember Lemieux the other night?
Oh yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah, that's all you need to see. Like,
yeah.
By the way, if that was like 30 years ago, Lemieux would be in like intensive care right now. Like his leg would have had to be amputated, because that was a heroic effort. There's no doubt about that. But it shows you he's not alone. Every team does this. They get in front of everything. So 30, 40-foot shots on the rush. It's with no traffic. Sorry, it's not going to work. These guys got to get dirty. The fact of the matter is Hedl, Lafreniere, Kakko, all three of those guys, Kakko and Hedl have a time to acclimate to the North American game, but they made their bones on a much larger ice sheet. So they're accustomed to dipsy doodles and having a half hour to make a decision with the puck before somebody is going to hit you. And in the leagues they played in, nobody hit you anyway. It's not like the Swedish Elite League is all that physical, or wherever the hell Hedl played juniors. Lafreniere is used to this ice sheet, but they're used to being the guy that has the puck, that looks around and has the sandwich and then decides what to do with it. That doesn't happen in NHL. You get the puck, somebody's there to remove you from the puck, and these guys got to learn that, and they got to go and take a beating in front of the net. They're big enough. This isn't the 1982 Rangers with the Smurfs, where everybody was 5'8" and got their heads caved in every time they played anybody, really. So these are big kids. One of them should punch somebody in the mouth once, here and there, like Kakko. I want to see that.
Yeah, no,
because Kakko's weak on the puck. That's you can get him off the puck easy, and you got to learn in this league that will travel. People will know that if you take the body on somebody and they give up the puck, that's all you're going to see.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, the bottom line, we need the young players to start playing well. You kind of got there the other day. The one thing we didn't talk about was the overall defense. I mean, we talked about Johnson a little bit, but what have you been thinking about Trouba, Fox, Miller? What have you seen from those guys? Lindgren?
Yeah, Fox has been really impressive.
Yeah, there we go.
I'll give it to you. I mean, he's mature with the puck. Again, I want to see that game translate
Playoffs.
to the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Because what makes him effective, and yes, this is more intense hockey, and I think as the season goes on, the regular season will become even more intense as these teams start to kind of slot in where they are, right? Where they start falling 6, 8 points out of a playoff spot. Those games are going to start being very, like, kind of desperation driven. So I do want to see if Fox has if that game translates to a tighter checking environment, because again, as we've discussed, he creates space by letting when guys peel off, right? He's smart with the puck. Where most guys would move it or panic, he pulls it back. The guys peel off, and he has more time. Um, so that again in the playoffs, people run you, so you don't have that extra second to make that little fancy move. But he's been very impressive. He's been probably their best defenseman up to this point. Trouba's been playing well, I think, and physical and sturdy. He hasn't had those moments like he had last year where you're like, you're literally where he's standing still and guys are, and by the way, he also is coming in, he's getting his legs underneath him because he didn't have a training camp either. I mean, I think he was sidelined prior to with I think COVID, just like Zibanejad. Unless I'm wrong on that, but I think I remember that being the case.
I'm not sure on that one. Yeah.
Miller, I love. I think Miller is going to be is going to be huge. He's smart.
His pass last night was pretty damn good.
Yeah,
joining the rush.
Oh yeah, he's smart. He's confident with the puck. He's going to get burned. He's going to get too confident, and somebody's going to be going back the other way when he's going forward at some point. But I like it because I think he's going to bring a huge piece to this game. To this team, I should say, for a long time. So very impressed with him. Lindgren is just the lunch pail guy that he's always been. He hasn't looked good or bad. He's just been steady. I can't even, I don't even want to utter the words Jack Johnson, so I won't even go there. And D'Angelo right now, who knows? He didn't look good last night. He made some really questionable passes, but maybe being off a couple of days got him out of his rhythm.
We'll this drama needs to stop. It's getting a little bullshit. You have a whole sect of Ranger fans that want him off the team for reasons, and it's just getting pretty frustrating. I mean, he was literally trending on Twitter after he missed the shootout against the Penguins because of his opinions, and everyone making fun of him because he's that way. So
right.
It's so stupid, but we're not going to go into it here. It's not that smart to do it anymore.
Well, listen, these are fair weather fans, right? I mean, this is the guy that last year was fourth overall in scoring for defensemen. That talent hasn't gone away. He's erratic behaviorally, so that's the big question mark with him. Can he rein himself back in? Can he be the mature version of himself on and off the ice this year that he was last year? If he is, he's a great asset. But I think his ticket's punched along with Strome's. I don't think they want either. That's like $9.5, $10 million between the two of them.
Yeah,
That's going away. As much as I don't like it, the Ranger world is enamored with Lundqvist, and they've got like 17 other defensemen that are.
Yeah, I think Schneider's the guy.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean,
I personally, I like Matthew Robertson and Brady, but because Robertson's 6'3", people kind of forget about him. He has good stats in whatever league he plays in. I forget what league he plays in.
Yeah,
but he's pretty good. I mean, I like size from defensemen too. And if you could put some offensive touch, do it.
Isn't he a lefty though?
Yeah, I mean that's what we kind of need. I mean,
yeah, well,
because we only have Lindgren and Miller. That's it.
Right. There's a little bit of a logjam after that with Smith, Johnson, Hayek.
Well,
Rykov.
Smith and Johnson will be gone in a year.
Yeah.
And I think Hayek, to be honest, I think Hayek and Rykov are they've been kind of pushed to the side. There hasn't been much word on them. They're not really contending for roster spot. Like if they were supposed to be here and on the team, Jack Johnson would not be on the team right now if they thought, because Rykov's been here long enough to where he should have been.
Rykov's in Russia, so
okay. So yeah, Hayek would have been here instead of Jack Johnson.
Yeah, if he pushed him hard enough, but I think Jack Johnson had a spot. I think that's one of those like sort of just weird dynamics. Nobody understood the deal when it was made, and I still can't understand why he's on the ice. I mean, he looks like he just looks slow. He doesn't look.
It's like when we had Dan Boyle and Shattenkirk, and they were just, and then of
Yeah,
course Shattenkirk left and looked better than he has in 5 years and won a Stanley Cup. And
yeah, I
yeah,
know. And he had the balls to be pissed off that the Rangers were paying him $6 million, and Tampa was paying $1 million. When he missed half a season and he sucked ass for the most of the time he was here, he was mad at the Rangers or miffed. I mean, like, shut the fuck up. I mean, seriously. I mean, there are worse problems in the world than getting traded to Tampa that was on the cusp of a cup when people had to unload your salary. So that guy rubs me the wrong way. New Yorker or not, fuck off.
yeah. Well, have fun in Anaheim, Kevin. We'll enjoy watching you over there. So
Yeah,
now
but
I
you're
know.
right. We got off track there, but Snyder's the guy for me that I'm looking forward to seeing because big kid, rough presence out there. He got suspended in the juniors for laying out that guy.
Yeah,
And it was a questionable suspension. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying yay, he hurt somebody, but in the heat of the moment, when your shoulder's going to somebody's head, half of a second prior to that, you were going for their chest or their shoulder, and then their head dips and you line them up. So they're very sensitive about headshots. So I'm not saying it's good he got suspended or good that the other guy may have got hurt, but it shows tendencies. That was an open ice hit. His idea was not me. Let me remove this guy from the puck the old-fashioned way. And if that's in his skull, that's invaluable. It won't be so bad having 3 or 4 guys, 6'2", 6'3", 215, 220 that are mobile on the back end.
oh yeah. I mean, Truba, Miller, Schneider. I mean, we really hope that ends up being what it is. So we talked about everything. We covered everything on this pod. I know we said George Lake would be on this one, but we'll get him on next one for sure. We'll have a Strictly Hockey. I think we're filming tomorrow morning, going over the first bit of the hockey season. Strictly Sports, we predicted the AFC and NFC championship games. It was just me and Steve this week. CJ was off. And then Strictly Yankees. When stuff starts happening again, I'll put one out there. But for now, no games, nothing going on in Yankee world specifically. And then Strictly Baseball will get done soon. On those, we're starting to do top 10 position lists. We did top 10 catchers on the last one. Next pod, we're doing top 10 first baseman. So I hope you guys tune into all of that. You can find us on basically every podcast platform. I'm going to stop saying you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. You can just find us on any podcast platform that you can think of. We got listeners all over the place, and we want to thank you guys for tuning in every week. For my dad,
YouTube.
And YouTube, by the way, we're putting out the visual. So for my dad, I'm Jacob Brown. You can follow us on Twitter at Strictly Sports P and on Facebook and Instagram at Strictly Sports Productions. And we will see you next time.